I was reborn a month before the apocalypse, right at the moment when the scoundrel proposed to me, watching their hypocritical performance right in front of me. I couldn't help but sneer. This time, you think you can step on me to climb up over my dead body. When I opened my eyes again, Donovan was kneeling in a cafe with a cheap woven ring, proposing to me, while Esther, the opportunist, cheered him on with the crowd around us. I was stunned for a moment. Then it hit me. I had been reborn at the exact moment when the scoundrel was proposing. In my previous life, it was after his successful proposal that I gave him the family heirloom ring as an engagement gift. This deceitful couple had been secretly involved long before, moved into my house after causing my parents' deaths, and even after plotting against me, they got married in my own home. They accidentally discovered a special space within the ring and used it to hoard supplies, coercing and enticing people with these resources to become leaders in the post-apocalyptic world. They thrived, while my family and I were reduced to vengeful spirits, living again. I coldly stared at Donovan kneeling before me, looking at that face I once loved so dearly, now only finding it ridiculous. Faith, why aren't you saying anything? If you don't agree soon, Donovan will lose face. Esther pushed me, clearly annoyed. If you care so much, why don't you marry him? I glared at her fiercely, barely holding back the urge to lash out at her. Esther was taken aback by my harsh tone, staring at me incredulously. In my previous life, I was known for being too soft and easily manipulated by her. Plus, since my family had sponsored her education, I used to talk to her carefully, always mindful of her pride, afraid of making her feel looked down upon. Bah, this lifetime, I wouldn't coddle her like I would a dog. What right do you have to talk to me like that? Just because your family spent money, do you think you can humiliate me? Does having money make you better than me? Esther started to make a scene again, tears welling up, which only disgusted me more. What else then? Should I serve you like a slave because my family paid for your schooling? If you have so much pride, why accept my family's help at all? Why bite the hand that feeds you? I sat back, crossing my legs with a defiant attitude. You. Esther was completely unprepared for my response and burst into tears. Donovan, unable to stand it anymore, tugged at my arm, his voice filled with dissatisfaction. Faith, don't go too far. Esther means well for us. I looked coldly at Donovan, still kneeling, but his eyes kept darting back to Esther with pity. Such a loving couple. How am I being unreasonable? You're my boyfriend, and yet you're already siding with her before we're even married. How can I trust you? I deliberately fanned the flames. You're my girlfriend, but Esther is like our sister. Of course, we need to take care of her. How can I just watch you bully her? Donovan, seeing that I wasn't backing down, grew angry too, stood up, and withdrew his hand holding the shabby ring, saying indignantly, if this is your attitude, then perhaps we shouldn't continue this. That's exactly what I was waiting for. I've been wanting to say that to you for a long time. With someone like you, who's nothing more than a pretty face, I wouldn't even consider letting you into our family. Dream on about continuing this. Take your trashy ring and get lost. And remember, it was I who dumped you. I stood up straight. What? Donovan was stunned, and so was Esther. This was not how they expected things to unfold. They both knew very well that without winning me over, they would have no access to my family's power, wealth, and resources, especially Esther, who, after falling out with me, might not even have the money to pay her tuition. Stop dreaming about clinging to the rich, watching their hypocritical faces, watching the murderers who brought ruin to my family. I wanted nothing more than to tear them limb from limb, to kill them where they stood, but I knew clearly that now was not the time to act. With the virus outbreak a month away, I couldn't afford to kill them yet, as drawing police attention would only complicate matters. The priority was to protect my parents, stock up on supplies, and prepare for the impending apocalypse. As for them, I would make them pay back everything they owed me, make their lives a living hell. I ignored the shameless pleas of those scoundrels, turned around, and headed home. In my past life, blinded by love, I led a wolf into the house and got my parents killed. Seeing my family again in this life, tears immediately streamed down my face. Seeing me cry startled my parents, who quickly came to comfort me. What's wrong, sweetheart? Who's been bullying you? My mother asked, pulling me into her arms with concern. It's nothing, I just missed you both, I said, my voice tinged with emotion. My father chuckled indulgently. You're all grown up and still crying. Your mom and dad are always here for you, will always love you. Hearing this made me feel even more guilty. My parents had never liked Donovan much, but they had agreed to our relationship after my relentless pleading. They had wholeheartedly welcomed this future son-in-law, providing money and effort, not knowing that Donovan, in order to be with Esther, had lured them out knowing full well about the zombies outside, leading to their deaths. In this life, I would never let my parents suffer like this again. I've broken up with Donovan, I declared nonchalantly. My parents clearly didn't believe me. In the past, I had even run away from home for him. It's true, we really broke up, I asserted firmly. Seeing my tears earlier, they reluctantly believed me. My dad suddenly burst into laughter. That's wonderful, I knew that boy was no good for you. Having been in business for so many years, I could tell he had a deceitful heart and was too scheming. If you had ended up with him, you would have suffered. I nodded repeatedly. Right, we need to start stockpiling at home. Things like instant noodles, biscuits, food, vegetables, clothes. The more the better, enough to last 3 to 5 years. Also, we should check the solar power system in our villa, and maybe even get a well dug in our yard. I quickly started giving instructions. My parents thought my ramblings were due to the shock of the breakup. It's true, a zombie virus outbreak will happen in a month. We need to survive. I revealed the truth to them. I carefully explained to my parents about my past life, how I was betrayed, how our family was victimized, and how I was thrown out of the car to be fed to the zombies. My mom cried uncontrollably, and my dad's eyes reddened with anger, his body trembling, believing my words. They began quietly purchasing supplies and modifying our home to prepare for the end of days. Our family's villa in the distant suburbs, not densely populated, offered us many advantages. The walls needed to be heightened, made of poured concrete, with an electric net on the outside and spikes on top. The bricks of the glass curtain walls were solar-powered, capable of converting into electricity for daily use. We bought a bunch of large freezers for the dining area and even built a cold storage to keep frozen goods. The basement was divided into several secret tunnels and shelters, just in case. The workers said the work would take 20 days, no problem. With quintuple wages and working through the night, we managed to complete all the renovations and preparations in just 10 days. Thus, our apocalypse shelter was established. At that time, the lousy guy still had no clue about the secret of the ring. My family and I discovered the space within the ring, which both shocked and delighted my parents. With this treasure, our chances of survival greatly increased. We packed the space with long shelf-life instant foods, noodles, flour, grains, emergency flashlights, anti-inflammatory medicines, medications for colds, fevers, diarrhea, and other common ailments, as well as hemostatic bandages and stun guns for self-defense. This way, even if someone did break in, they wouldn't be able to take our life-saving supplies. In the apocalypse, money is the least valuable thing, so my parents quickly liquidated our assets, exchanging them for supplies and gold bars to ensure we could rise again if the chaos ever ended. With all prepared, there were less than 20 days left before the outbreak of the zombie virus. Unexpectedly, before the zombies appeared, that despicable couple came knocking first. Donovan, are we at the wrong place? Faced with the nearly 10-meter-high wall, Esther and Donovan were silent for a full half-hour. If not for the GPS repeatedly confirming their arrival at the destination, they would have suspected they had ended up near a prison, with its high walls and barbed wire. Anyway, we need to clear up this misunderstanding, otherwise, it's going to cause a lot of trouble for you, Esther, Donovan said insincerely. Esther nodded hurriedly and then dialed my phone. If worst comes to worst, I'd just appease them for now and secure the living expenses first. At that moment, I was inventorying over 100 boxes of snail noodle, crawfish-flavored noodles, compressed biscuits, nuts, instant noodles, milk, and frozen steaks, when my phone lit up and I saw Esther on the screen. I decisively hung up. She called again, and I hung up again, repeating this 3 times before I finally blocked her. She was just slowing down my stocking speed. 500 bottles of white liquor, 250 bottles each of strong and light aroma types, 200 cases of beer, 600 packs of cigarettes, 200 kilograms of tea, 500 kilograms of sugar. These were all valuable commodities in the apocalypse. As I inventoried them, I categorized and packed everything into the space with my parents. And let's not forget about various seeds for plants and crops. Food supplies will run out, but with seeds, We can grow an endless supply. There were also various books like Crop Cultivation Manual, So Breeding, Medical Encyclopedia, Wilderness Survival Guide, along with my favorite comic books, and novels about corporate tycoons, and game cartridges. I was bustling about inside the house, completely unaware that outside, Esther's face had turned stormy, on the other end of the phone. Listening to the busy tone, Esther was almost grinding her teeth in rage. What's so great about Faith's family? They just paid for my tuition and living expenses. Just because they have money, they look down on people, she thought. Donovan, seeing his sweetheart distressed, comforted her. Don't worry, Esther. Once I deal with Faith and take over their family business, you'll never have to suffer again. He confidently pressed the doorbell of our family's villa. Already armed with a plethora of sweet nothings, and then, he was electrocuted. I had modified the doorbell into a stun button. A whopping 2,000 volts of electricity knocked the jerk to the ground instantly, his hair standing on end, hands curled like chicken claws, eyes rolling back. Donovan, Donovan, what's wrong with you? Esther, seeing Donovan convulsing and foaming at the mouth, was terrified. She pulled out her phone to call the police or an ambulance, but suddenly, there was no signal at all, because I had turned on the signal jammer. Our villa was incredibly isolated when we bought it, far from any village or store, with the nearest detached neighbor a mile away, surrounded by tall trees and bushes. It sounds nice to say it's well-greened, but frankly, it's a place where not even birds would poop. No, birds do poop. A crow, appearing from nowhere above, cawed loudly as it flew by. Dropping its waist mid-air, it landed squarely on Esther's face, nearly falling into her mouth, causing her to curse vehemently without any regard for her image. Before she could recover, suddenly more crows appeared, hovering above her. They unleashed a barrage of droppings like rain, covering her from head to toe. Donovan, standing below, didn't escape either. It was I who played some crow-sensitive sounds to lure them over. Both of them hadn't even stepped through the door when they were drenched in a mix of yellow and white bird droppings, the watery kind, which startlingly woke Donovan up. Esther was shocked, scared, and disgusted, dodging and yelling in a terribly awkward plight. My parents and I watched their embarrassing ordeal on the surveillance camera, laughing heartily from inside the house. Faith, how did you come up with this idea? Putting laxatives in the bird feed? Ha ha ha, brilliant. Look at Donovan, totally baffled as he got up from the ground, his hair looking like it was styled with aluminum foil. Ha ha. My dad was laughing so hard he couldn't straighten up, and my mom was wiping tears from her eyes. As they laughed, the old couple couldn't help but cry. Esther and Donovan, two individuals whom they treated as dearly as their own daughter and as a future successor, ended up betraying us, leading our family to ruin. Moreover, in a past life, Esther and Donovan usurped our family's house, using its advantageous location to survive until they discovered a new realm and began to thrive. Now, how could I let these two swines covet my family's sanctuary again? So I decided to take the initiative. As they were cursing outside the door, the high gate opened, and I walked out. Accompanying me were some extras my parents had paid a hefty sum to hire. The show was just beginning. Seeing me, Donovan, remembering the mess he got into while looking for me, instantly flew into a rage and started berating me. Faith, what do you mean by this? I genuinely brought Esther here to apologize to you and to clear up our misunderstanding, and you didn't open the door for ages. And then, he was cut off mid-sentence by Esther, who tugged at his sleeve, only then noticing the dozen or so men in black suits and sunglasses behind me, each looking menacing with the leader sporting a long scar on his face. Facing this formidable group, Donovan swallowed hard and instinctively took a step back. Do you guys know this young lady? The leader asked, his voice raspy and gruff as if choked with phlegm from 1982, cold and ruthless. His followers, with tattooed arms and thick gold chains, looked ready for violence, almost blatantly broadcasting their mafia affiliations. Before Donovan could speak, a sack dropped from one of the men's hands, spilling out a bloody arm. Esther screamed in terror and hid behind Donovan, trembling. What's your relation to this young lady? Her parents fled after failing in their business and borrowing a huge sum from us at high interest rates. We've come to collect the debt. A life for a debt. Since you know her, you might as well stay. The leader sinisterly smiled, his acting quite convincing. Donovan, save me, I grimaced, recalling all the misfortunes of my past life, finally managing to squeeze out a few tears. Donovan and Esther, petrified, watched as I was held by the mafia, the image of the arm in the sack sending chills down their spines. No, no, I don't know her, Esther stammered, hastily trying to distance herself from me. I pretended to be shocked, my eyes wide as I looked at her, then turned with an expectant, pleading gaze toward Donovan. Donovan hesitated for only 3 seconds before he declared, I know her. Oh, I was quite surprised, and the gang members also watched him with interest. She's the other woman, the kind who ruins relationships with girlfriends. I'm here today to confront her. Don't believe me? Look, this is my girlfriend, Donovan said, pointing at Esther and lying effortlessly. His acting was Oscar-worthy. Even the gang members were taken aback by his performance. So, boss, I'm with you guys. We all have a bone to pick with Faith's family. Look at what she's done to me, Donovan said, pointing to his messed up hair, his logic scoring full marks. You make a good point. The lead gang member nodded thoughtfully, pleased Donovan greatly. Suddenly, the boss slapped Donovan twice, back and forth across his face. But I'm not one for reason, the boss said coldly. I might look the part, but I'm not the one you deal with. What do I care if she's the other woman or the fourth woman? Why are you hitting people? Esther asked weakly. It was my turn to step forward and I slapped Esther twice as well, sending her stumbling to the ground. When did the real girlfriend pop up? I had no idea, and a real girlfriend helping her boyfriend propose. Looks like you really love being cheated on, I said coldly, staring at Esther. My eyes were filled with murderous intent, and Esther was terrified. Faith, why do you have to be so harsh? Esther cowered, not yet recovered from the shock, and received 2 more slaps from the boss. Weren't you saying you didn't know her? How do you know her name now? I hate liars the most. The boss's scarred face twisted angrily. Esther was tearful and dared not speak anymore, while Donovan frowned, still figuring out how to escape. Silence fell over them. They thought by being quiet, they could avoid attention, but the boss and his men beat them up again, fiercely and brutally, in the chaos. I took the opportunity to kick them in unspeakable places. Why hit us when we're silent? Donovan and Esther, bruised and battered, were on the verge of tears. It's hot and I'm irritable. Don't mess with me if I'm not smiling, the boss said coldly. Why don't you hit her? Esther trembled, pointing at me. The boss raised an eyebrow and smirked. You think I'm a fool? She's my creditor. If I hurt her, who will pay me? That made perfect sense, and they were left speechless. Boss, now that these kids have discovered our base, what if they talk and the cops come knocking? Might as well finish what we started, one of the gang members suggested, making a throat-slitting gesture. The gang leaders looked menacing, and Donovan and Esther's legs gave out. They never imagined that a simple scam at my house could lead to their heads rolling, crying out loud in fear and begging for mercy. Faith, you jinx, it's all because of you that I ran into these gangsters, Esther cried bitterly, tears streaming down her face. Why did you come looking for me? I asked, puzzled. Of course, for living expenses. Faith's family promised to support me until I graduate from college, and I haven't received the money for March yet, Esther said, straightening up and speaking righteously. Oh, right, with all the chaos and our falling out, I indeed hadn't continued supporting Esther. I never expected her to have the nerve to come asking. I glanced at the bird droppings scattered everywhere. Today's rain wasn't as heavy as the day Yipping asked her dad for money. How come Esther has the audacity to poach right under my nose, even daring to ask my family for money? Esther, sensing what I was thinking, stiffened her neck and told Donovan, Donovan and I are truly in love. How deep is your love? I really wanted to know. About a sister I've always cared for deeply, and a man I wanted to spend my life with, till the heavens fall and the seas dry up, till the end of the world, Esther said confidently. Donovan quickly nodded in agreement. Then why come to me? I asked sarcastically. Donovan choked. Indeed, he had originally come to reconcile with me. How could he support his beloved Esther without money? But he quickly argued, I was worried you might mistreat Esther, so I came with her. She is my true love. To die together. Big brother tattoo, intrigued, leaned forward with his machete, its cold gleam reflecting their anxious faces. Donovan remained silent, while Esther shakily nodded. Big brother tattoo mused. Isn't that like sealing your fate? Damn, Big Brother is a genius. Why didn't I think of that? Seeing their steadfast love, I suddenly had a new idea. To lock this star-crossed pair in fate. Only about 10 days left until the zombie virus outbreak. I figured all I needed to do was secure my family's shelter and lie low, instead of exacting revenge myself. Wouldn't it be more satisfying to let them destroy each other? I had the guys stage a dramatic scene with hammers, machetes, chainsaws, and axes. The leader, smoking a cigarette, calmly asked Donovan, "Only one can live. Who do you choose?" Donovan didn't hesitate to choose Esther. He was with me just for money anyway. Now that he saw my family was bankrupt, and with no house or money left, getting involved with the underworld could even cost him his life. Only a fool would choose me, so the guys, wielding their weapons, dragged me into the villa because of Donovan's choice, deciding to kill me inside. We set up a table and played cards while pretending to be in distress. The guys banged on metal, and I screamed dramatically, "Donovan, you are so cruel. Donovan, Esther, you are murderers. I will never let you go. Donovan, Donovan, Donovan. Save me, save me." I screamed so realistically that even the crows outside took flight. The more Donovan and Esther heard, the more terrified they became. When the guys threw fake blood packets from under the door, Donovan and Esther fled in utter panic. From the surveillance footage, I saw Esther fall face first twice, and Donovan tumbling and scrambling away. After such a terrifying experience, they wouldn't dare mention me at school or return to this nightmarish place. Without them revealing the location, this place remained temporarily safe. I call Trump. I threw down 3 cards, feeling quite pleased. Triple aces, bomb. Big Brother played his hand, excitedly spitting as he spoke. I pass. Come on. From 4 to K, Big Brother threw his cards. I pass. 3 threes. I pass. 1 king. And it's over, ha ha ha. Pay up, pay up. Big Brother clapped and laughed loudly. My parents brought in some freshly cut watermelon, smiling happily as they watched us. Their mood also unusually relaxed. I reserved the best room in the house for the guys and gave them all the expensive equipment and medicine. After the guys retreated, my parents and I started to simply live in seclusion, spending our days gardening and growing vegetables, caring for birds, feeding fish, wholesaling and stockpiling supplies, and repeatedly checking the power system. It's all been fortified again and again, including the basement and the secret passages. I also prepared a special gift for Esther and Donovan. Comfortable days passed by in the blink of an eye, with sleep and waking marking the time. Suddenly one day, a loud thud came from beyond the wall. I turned on the surveillance to see a bloody, disfigured face repeatedly slamming into the perimeter wall, persistently and mindlessly, until half of the skull was shattered. The zombie virus had erupted. I activated the high-voltage electric grid defense system, and the zombies outside instantly turned into ashes, silencing the chaos. In the living room, my parents and I turned on the TV. The news was urgently broadcasting several incidents of people attacking others in the streets. Those people had blood-red eyes and twisted limbs, wildly rushing into the streets, biting anyone they caught. The news suggested it might be rabies and advised everyone to be cautious when going out. But I knew it wasn't that. The virus spread rapidly. By the end of the day, nearly a fifth of the population was infected. In my past life, it was on the day of the outbreak that Donovan and Esther tricked my parents into going out, leading to their deaths from bites. As expected, during a live broadcast, a zombie suddenly rushed into the frame, biting off the neck of the host. Then the camera wildly shook, crashed down, and the feed stalled, showing only a few pairs of feet shuffling past and blood dripping down. The city quickly plunged into panic. More frightening than the virus was the human heart. The first day, people were still queuing in supermarkets to buy supplies. By the second day, looting and smashing had begun. All stores, including fruit shops, were ransacked. In places without zombies, humans were fighting each other bloodily. Someone started a live broadcast of this apocalypse, resembling a horror movie, huddled in a cramped room. They started with eating instant noodles, then dry bread, and eventually paste, outside the door. A girl's cries for help could be heard. The broadcaster, looking through the peephole, saw her weak and fragile. The girl pitifully knocked on the door, saying zombies were chasing her downstairs and crying for help. The broadcaster, unable to bear it, opened the security door. The moment the lock was opened, the door was violently pushed open. A boy with a baseball bat rushed from the girl's side, knocking the broadcaster unconscious and pushing him out. The boy and girl then slipped in and locked the door. Well practiced in their routine, these two, I knew all too well. it was Esther and Donovan. It seemed this was not their first time using Esther's frail image as bait to trick kind-hearted people into opening their doors, then taking over their rooms and resources. When they ran out of food, they would move on to the next target. I never expected them to be so vicious in this second life. Damn, looks like this guy was broke. There's nothing here but a few bags of flour, Donovan grumbled discontentedly. Esther, a bit frightened, tried to comfort him. They eagerly scavenged for food, unaware that the phone live streaming everything was still on. Unfortunately, Esther couldn't cook. The precious flour of the apocalypse was ruined by her, and Donovan struggled to swallow it, complaining as he ate. Outside, there was more knocking on the door. The original owner of the house had woken up, pleading outside, "Let me in. Please let me in, the zombies are coming up." The video captured the original broadcaster's woeful cries, which soon turned into screams that gradually weakened. Inside, the two listened to the wailing and fighting outside, along with the banging against the security door. They stoically ate the disastrously messy dumplings without changing their expressions. "They're such bastards. This is murder. Where's the humanity?" Mom and Dad pounded the table in anger. I shook my head, picked up a sizzling piece of grilled meat, and placed it on their plates. They won't be arrogant for long. One's a selfish diva, the other, a vicious egomaniac. Right now, they're just bound by mutual benefits. If they were on opposing sides, would their bond be as strong as gold? Just wait and see. Mom and Dad sighed, then lowered their heads and happily took a bite of the pork belly. I placed small sausages on the grill, followed by mushrooms, potato slices, beef skewers, and chicken cartilage. The delicious aroma of the barbecue dispelled the gloom of the zombies roaming outside, especially when compared to the pasty dumplings shown on the live stream. Our barbecue smelled even more tantalizing. The live stream continued intermittently as the power supply in the high-rise became unstable and the indoor temperature once spiked to 40 degrees, turning the water murky and unreliable. Outside, the zombies' howls and banging could be heard. Despite the security door being theoretically hard to break through, the intermittent pounding still made us anxious and tense, especially during the dead of night when a sudden loud bang would make it seem as if the monsters could break in at any moment, causing sleepless nights. The remaining flour became even more precious. Esther and Donovan learned to eat boiled paste like noodles, starving and parched. However, the original owner of the house, possibly killed by them, seemed to linger outside with a persistent spirit, preventing them from finding a new refuge. They knew that if they didn't leave, even if they weren't bitten by zombies, they would starve to death trapped inside. I surveilled their location with a drone. Traffic had come to a standstill, and the entire city seemed frozen, with only zombies shuffling aimlessly. Any noise would attract a swarm of them, turning those once brightly dressed people into decaying walking dead. Esther and Donovan drew large SOS and alive signs on the windows, hoping for rescue. The only time there was a disturbance, a zombie climbed up to the third floor and almost shattered the glass. They hid under the table, not daring to make a sound as they watched the zombie's rotten face press against the glass, nearly driving them insane. From then on, they dared not sleep during the day, constantly on edge as if living years in a day. Meanwhile, I lay comfortably in an air-conditioned room eating ice cream, watching a Crayon Shin-chan movie on a 70-inch projector. My parents were in the next room watching a patriotic war drama, occasionally bursting into laughter and discussing the plot. The room temperature was around 26 degrees, and the scallions I planted a few days ago were thriving on the windowsill. Since our villa was located in a remote area, the risk of infection was minimal. Occasionally, a few zombies, possibly mutated neighbors or housekeepers, would stagger into our property only to be electrocuted by the high-voltage security, unable to even approach the fence. In this apocalypse-safe house, I spent each day deciding what to eat, and in just half a month, I had gained 8 kilograms. My parents, having retired from years of business, were enjoying a rare relaxation and time together. Observing the chaos and bloodshed outside, we couldn't help but reflect on the stark contrasts of life. My daily pleasures included binge-watching shows, snacking, watching apocalypse live streams, and surveying the city with my drone. I recorded the coordinates of survivors, airdropping them life-sustaining food, except for Esther and Donovan. When they were nearly starved and on the brink of a mental breakdown, I sent them a gift, a location of a shelter sufficient for months of survival. This was a room I had previously rented and then remodeled, stocked with food and supplies. prepared for them, a tomb of love, just a kilometer away. To know the entry code, they had to lock each other up, yes, literally lock each other up, to open the door to the house at that address. They had to first chain themselves together with a chain I had prepared in advance, only then would the sensor door open. I remember when this couple came to me, they had said they loved each other to the ends of the earth, that they would stay together even in death. Of course, I was only too happy to oblige them. In this apocalypse, I offer you eternal love. 10. Despite their skepticism about the mysterious letter delivered by the drone, they had no other choice, but the room they were trapped in was cut off from water, electricity, and food supplies, so they fought their way through, barely managing to eliminate the zombies at the door and hijacked a car. Under relentless pursuit by hordes of zombies, they finally made it to the address I had given them. The place was surrounded by surveillance cameras I had set up. I watched as zombies, screeching behind them, reached their hands through the door. Donovan held the door firmly against them, and the zombies' hands were severed, twitching on the ground for a few moments, unaware of pain. The zombies continued to pound fiercely, their noise attracting even more of them. Are you done yet? Hurry up, hurry, Donovan urged, sweating profusely. It's done, Esther, with a crying voice, tremblingly chained their feet together with the 2-meter-long chain I had prepared. As soon as the chain was secured, the sensor door beeped open. Donovan and Esther exchanged a glance and immediately dashed inside. Donovan ran quickly, Esther slower, and their mismatched pace almost tripped them over the chain. Donovan rushed through the door first, and with no one to hold it, zombies immediately followed, although not very fast. The narrow corridor almost allowed several zombies to catch Esther. Esther, panicked and frightened, was about to enter the door but accidentally fell at the entrance, screaming for help in terror. Donovan, who was about to close the door, saw Esther lying at the entrance and the zombies about to pounce. Gritting his teeth, he pulled on the chain with all his might, dragging Esther inside. The moment the door closed, the zombies slammed heavily against it. The two collapsed on the floor, relieved to have survived. When they regained their senses, they noticed the room was full of supplies. Esther, who hadn't eaten in days, started devouring the food without concern for her appearance. Donovan, while eating bread, looked at Esther with a hint of disdain as she smacked her lips in a messy state. Eventually, he couldn't help but say, Esther, you fell just now and almost got us killed. Do you realize that? Esther paused, incredulously looking at Donovan, and asked, Donovan, are you blaming me? Donovan pursed his lips, glanced at the chain linking their feet, and said nothing more, but his meaning was clear. Esther took a deep breath and said sharply, if you hadn't run so fast, I wouldn't have been dragged down. My ankle got scraped when you pulled me through the door, and I haven't blamed you. How can you have the nerve to blame me? Donovan didn't respond, but Esther kept talking until Donovan begged for forgiveness and admitted his mistake. Sitting in the basement of my villa, I turned off the lights and plugged in my PS5 to play Dark Souls, as I explored ruins and slaughtered monsters in the game. I listened to Esther's neurotic ramblings and Donovan's subdued arguments through the monitor, feeling the cracks forming in their love, which was supposed to be stronger than gold. 11. Based on the progress bar of their previous life, their love should have heated up quickly in this apocalypse, leading them to form an alliance and become a couple united forever. But all of this was predicated on them seizing my family's wealth and treasures. In a world where survival hinges on endless supplies and secure refuges, the allure of resources motivates the rise of leaders in a post-apocalyptic era. The once nameless individuals, now constantly living in fear for their lives, are left with nothing but endless mutual recriminations. More terrifying still is the short chain, barely over a meter long, that forces them to be together at all times. Esther enjoys sleeping in, while Donovan is accustomed to early morning workouts, turning every morning into a battleground of arguments. Donovan prefers quiet, but Esther talks incessantly. In their spacious 3-bedroom apartment, the chain prevents even a moment of solitude, as Donovan can't even shut a door to find peace. Donovan, a northerner, prefers noodles, while Esther only likes rice. Neither of them can cook, so they subsist on fast food, constantly blaming each other. As time goes on, one wants to sleep while the other needs to get up. One wants to bathe, while the other wants to watch TV. One is hungry, the other just wants to lounge around. Even turning over in bed can wake the other due to the chain on their legs. I watch as their relationship evolves from affectionate glances to boredom, annoyance, disgust, hatred, and then enmity. I hide in the shadows, relishing their gradual breakdown. They have become prisoners of a so-called love, truly shackled by their grievances against each other. This is the gift I give them before sending them to their deaths, a chance to see each other's true colors. In the second month after the outbreak of the zombie virus, less than half of the population survives, and the world has lost all order. With a massive reduction in population over 2 months, food shortages are widespread. To survive, people start forming alliances and makeshift gangs, recruiting members with supplies and weapons, establishing power, and engaging in violence and looting in this apocalyptic world. In their previous life, Donovan and Esther amassed supplies and dominated their adversaries using my space. However, this time, the iron chain on their feet keeps them from daring to venture outside. The chain, just over a meter long, binds them tightly together, making it impossible for them to act independently. Once outside, their chances of survival are almost nil due to their impaired mobility. Forcing them to cower in a small room, they try cutting the chain with knives, burning it with fire, and smashing it with hammers, but the noise attracts zombies who furiously pound on their door, yet the chain remains unbroken. The room is still stocked with supplies, but their spirits are at a breaking point. The two are bound together even for basic needs like bathing and using the toilet, and dressing becomes a challenge. The novelty of their initial affair has long faded, replaced by disgust and escalating arguments. I sit in the villa, munching on a tomato, mockingly watching the continuous conflicts on the surveillance screens like a primetime reality show. After being trapped for 2 months with no end in sight, their patience wears thin. Donovan wants to join a gang to carve out a path to survival, while Esther prefers to hunker down and wait for reinforcements. In yet another heated disagreement, Donovan loses his temper with Esther. He smothers her head with a pillow and kicks her viciously in the abdomen. Esther's muffled sobs come through the surveillance, while the chain that symbolized their steadfast love clatters loudly. "You bitch, if it weren't for you dragging me down, I would have escaped long ago. Why don't you just die?" Donovan curses her brutally, without a trace of compassion. Esther, unable to get up, stares at Donovan incredulously with tear-filled eyes. "You're the one who insisted on marrying me. If not for you, I'd still be enjoying the support of Faith's family, living without worry. You have the nerve to say that. If it weren't for you, I would have been Faith's family's son-in-law, escaping with all their money before their bankruptcy." Donovan retorts through clenched teeth. "Pathetic man, living off a woman. I have no respect for you," Esther retorts, curling up on the ground and kicking at Donovan. "Crafty witch." Donovan slaps her in response. In this desperate, apocalyptic world, their mutual dependence has turned into a toxic battle for survival. They were actually fighting among themselves. While hunkered down in a fortress-like shelter far from the city center, I constantly monitored the outside world and amused myself by keeping an eye on this despicable man and woman. The two fought fiercely, irreparably severing ties. They desperately wanted to go their separate ways. But what they didn't know was that the chain I had custom-made for them would forever bind them together, unless one cut off the other's leg, or killed them. 13. In the third month of the apocalypse, the government established bases and the military launched rescue operations. Most gangs struggling to survive promptly surrendered, while the remaining scattered forces ceased their disturbances and no longer dared to stir up trouble. The streets swarmed with zombies that were incinerated by muskets. The city was cleansed, and rescue signals were sent from all directions, increasingly reaching survivors hidden in corners. My parents and I were among the first to be rescued to the base. Using an unknown number, I sent the coordinates of the base to Donovan and Esther, but I instructed them that there was only one spot available at the base. I even thoughtfully prepared a car for them. It seemed fate dictated that to reach the base, they would have to pass the very road where they had once pushed me out of the car to feed the zombies. The same scene as before, only now it had become a cruel choice between the two of them. The more brutal part was that they thought the other was unaware. When the base doors opened, only Esther stood before me, dragging a blood-stained, empty chain from her foot. The answer was self-evident. 14. The footage from the dashcam, transmitted back in real time, showed them getting into the car and desperately fleeing, with zombies relentlessly chasing after them, clawing at the doors and smashing the windshield. In a terrifying and grotesque scene, the car struggled to move forward. As they approached the small road, the number of zombies suddenly increased. completely surrounding the SUV and shrieking as they attacked. The glass windows banged and buckled under the assault, and even though the zombies shattered their shoulders and tore off their arms, they stubbornly continued their attack. The first crack in the glass spread, stained with the sauce-brown fluid of the zombies, and the whole vehicle shook precariously. Esther, with a face of despair, turned to Donovan for help. They knew all too well that unless one of them could get out to distract the zombies, the other might have a chance to survive. Otherwise, they would both perish. The zombies continued their assault outside, and a second crack appeared on the side window. Esther, I love you. Donovan trembled, giving Esther a deep kiss, then moved to open the door, but it was on Esther's side. Donovan, what are you doing? Esther exclaimed in shock. We can't both die here. I love you so much, and I believe you'd want me to survive, Donovan said righteously, confident in his physical advantage over Esther. Esther lowered her eyes, her expression dimming. If this is Donovan's decision, then I'm willing. Really, Esther, you're willing to sacrifice yourself for me? Donovan was overjoyed, surprised it was even easier than he had imagined. He pulled out a dagger, intending to chop off Esther's foot and free her from the chain, pushing her out of the car, but suddenly, he collapsed, powerless. I'm willing, Esther said expressionlessly, taking the knife. She exerted all her strength. Severing Donovan's ankle caused him to howl in excruciating pain, powerless to fight back. The zombies outside the vehicle, drawn by the scent of blood, went into a frenzy. You bitch, you drugged the water, Donovan screamed, his body limp and in so much pain he nearly passed out. Just like before, the water was drugged, but this time, it was intended for her lover. Esther remained expressionless as she quickly pushed Donovan out of the car. Instantly, Donovan was swarmed and bitten by the zombies. Screams echoed as Esther climbed into the driver's seat and drove away. I was willing. Donovan, only one of us could enter the base. I believe if the roles were reversed, you'd want me to survive too, Esther muttered to herself, driving while tossing Donovan's severed foot out of the window. I know you loved me, so I'll carry on for both of us, Esther said, rubbing her cheek where Donovan had hit her, and with a cold laugh, she floored the accelerator. When Esther arrived at the base, having sacrificed Donovan to save herself after much ordeal, the person who greeted her was me. Faith, why are you here? You didn't die, Esther exclaimed in horror. Not only had I not died, but my parents, who were supposed to be killed by the mafia, also stood behind me. What's going on here? Esther was confused and stepped back repeatedly. Weren't we supposed to love each other, till the seas dry up and the rocks crumble, till the end of the world? I scoffed, looking down at the chains on her feet. Esther looked up incredulously. You knew everything. I stood my ground, neither confirming nor denying. Are you the mysterious person who provided us with the safe house address? Esther staggered, almost falling in shock. I continued to smile. The chains on our feet, did you prepare those too? Esther asked, trembling. I did not deny it. So, the address to the base was also sent by you. Esther became hysterical, her rage predictable as she lunged at me. She was restrained by 2 officers. You're clever, guessing it right away, I said, smiling innocently. You devil. Why do you torment us like this? Esther tried to reach me, her eyes nearly shooting fire, wishing she could tear me apart, but she couldn't get close to me, held back by the officers, one of whom even drew a gun. Non-compliant living humans pose a greater threat than zombies in this post-apocalyptic world. If Esther caused more trouble, I wouldn't mind giving her a bullet. You killed Donovan. You killed him, Esther shouted, her eyes red with fury. Quiet. Do you want to attract the zombies outside the base? Before I could act, the commanding officer hit Esther on the head with the butt of his gun. Esther fell to the ground in pain, holding her head and sobbing pitifully. But as someone from a previous life destroyed by Esther, I only found it laughable. I looked at her mockingly. How could I have killed your Donovan? It was you who fed him the drug drink. You were the one who cut off his legs and threw him alive into a horde of zombies. I accused. Stop, just stop. You're lying. It wasn't me. Esther covered her head, collapsing as if she had only just realized that Donovan was indeed dead, and it was by her doing. But you did survive, didn't you? I mocked. Survived by sacrificing your lover. I laughed heartily, my tone tinged with cruelty. In the survivor base, where resources were tight and space extremely limited, Esther was assigned to a shared room for 12 people. It had no windows, no sunlight. Just barely enough space to stretch out her legs to sleep. Why should we, the poor, have no dignity? Why does Faith get a private room? We all survived. We should all have equal rights, Esther argued with hands on her hips, trying to incite her roommates. But she was mistaken. I never needed money to enter the base. I donated billions worth of supplies using a spatial ring and Faith's family's fortune, and saved countless lives, earning a small privilege in return. While I lazed around in a large villa, confident that my country wouldn't abandon us, that the government wouldn't abandon us, I believed that humanity would not be overwhelmed by this crisis, having survived numerous severe challenges throughout history. Thus, during these apocalyptic times, I compiled a list of survivors found by drones over the past 2 months and handed it over to the government. That's why humans could counterattack so quickly. Why in this era? Half of the survivors managed to escape doom. Esther continued to rant. The people in the room looked at her as if she were a fool. One of the women came over and stuffed Esther's mouth with a rag. Every single person in this room was saved by Faith. She deserves to have a single room, the woman, holding a young boy, said emotionally. Everyone in our building mutated. The child's father died trying to save us. And we were trapped in our house. If it weren't for her using drones to drop food, my child would have starved to death. She's our savior. Is it wrong for me to demand human rights? Why should there still be distinctions of class at the end of the world? Why should I live in such a wretched place? Esther spat out, her demeanor having changed drastically since killing Donovan, revealing her true, brazen, shameless self. Why don't you consider where the soldiers who rescued you are living? Have you thought that if this room housed only 6 or 4 people, you wouldn't have had a chance to enter this base at all? Another girl in the room said angrily, glaring. The girl, known as number 11, had been trapped in a pantry surrounded by zombies and nearly died. A young soldier broke through the encirclement to rescue her but was bitten and begged the girl to shoot him in the head. Survivors of this apocalypse, having endured nightmarish attacks and brushes with death, cherish the opportunity to stay in the base and the hard-earned chance to continue living, grateful for the glimmers of humanity that shone through. Confronted by Esther's ungrateful attitude and thinking of those who had sacrificed themselves for their survival, number 11 could no longer hold back. I don't care what Faith has, I want it too. Esther lunged at me violently. Slap. Was I too kind to you? I said, looking at the obstinate Esther, and fiercely slapped her to the ground. Everyone owes you, is that it? Treating you like a sister, caring for you in every way because we looked down on you. My parents funded your education out of pity. My fiancé was kind to you, and you tried to seduce him. Being poor isn't a sin, but shamelessness is, I said, punching as I released months of pent-up anger. I gave you a chance to apologize and a chance to live. Even though I gave you the chance to witness love with your lover, how did you respond? I sneered devilishly. You threw him into a pile of zombies, just like you did to me in a past life. What? Esther stopped cursing and causing a scene, and just stared at me blankly. Faith, what do you mean by past life? What are you talking about? Do you know something else? Esther screamed frantically in front of me. On the way to deliver supplies to another base, Esther tried her old tricks again, thinking she could compete with me, but found herself completely powerless. Anticipating her dirty tricks, I simply turned her own game against her. Esther tried to push me out of the vehicle but got bitten by a zombie as she opened the door. She began to mutate quickly and, while still lucid, deliberately scratched me viciously. Struggling, she tried to pull me out of the vehicle to die with her. I knew she had intentionally arranged to be in the same vehicle as me, and I knew how much she hated me. Faith, go to hell, you can't beat me, even if we start over in this life, you'll still die by my hand. Esther laughed maniacally. You little trash, the spatial treasure is a waste in your hands. Donovan and I at least became leaders and tyrants, while you, hoarding supplies, are just a little lackey. Ha ha ha. Esther's eyes began to bloodshot, and her expression turned fierce. You're only fit to be my stepping stone. In another life, you'll still just be a sacrifice for me. Esther's speech slurred, her limbs twisted, her pupils turned red, and her fingers clawed. Before she died, she remembered everything, or perhaps, she had remembered everything before we even left, yet she felt no remorse. I gave her a chance at life, and she wished me dead. This woman, for her own benefit, chose to betray friendship, family, and love in 2 lifetimes, as expected. I fiercely kicked her under the vehicle and sped away. She didn't know, letting her or Donovan into the base wasn't out of my overflowing kindness, but was intentional. I am a person who must retaliate. Letting those scoundrels die unknowingly, compared to the pain I've suffered, is a great mercy. How is this possible? Therefore, instead of a one-sided slaughter knowing the plot, I prefer to destroy what they firmly believe in. Dismantle their love and let them experience the despair of survival in the apocalypse, feel the pain of betrayal, and the hatred of being killed by their closest companions, without the treasure space and supplies, without the wealth of Faith's family, without the advantage of a refuge. These two dependent on each other endure endless zombie chases, hunger, and fear, eventually turning against each other and killing each other. Only in this way is revenge truly complete, isn't it? Especially seeing Esther recall the glory of her past life and her frustration and helplessness, it's particularly satisfying. As for the scratches, sorry, in Faith's family's villa, vaccines were secretly developed long ago. Who would have thought that those extras left in the villa were actually the country's top biologists and pharmacologists? This is my ultimate backup, as one of the first to be vaccinated. My serum will bring hope to humanity. On this journey, the most crucial cargo was myself. In the 5th month of the apocalypse, humanity welcomed a new dawn. My nemesis perished in a wave of zombies, and I, a survivor, also became a savior.